you have to make content that is able to go and relate to a lot of people, but also be kind of like in your niche and like make content that a brand will be like, oh yeah, like that'll work out good for me to advertise whatever. You know what I mean?
Are you an RV person or are you just RV life curious? Either way, this is a podcast for you. My name is Kate White, and I've interviewed over 50 of my fellow full-time RV women over the past year. These women are not just managing to travel full-time with their spouse, and often with young kids, they're also running a business or a nonprofit as well. These RV queens live a counterculture lifestyle while also pursuing their passion. They're living their dream both personally and professionally. This summer, I'm highlighting 8 of the most popular episodes of the podcast so far. And as a bonus, at the end of the episode, you'll get to hear an update on how the guest's life has changed over the past year. I hope you enjoy the episode and are inspired to keep pursuing your dreams as well. Ladies, I've been searching for a business coach to have on the podcast who knows how to explain the importance of sales in a relatable, interesting way. I have finally found the one. Not only is Dora Rankin a podcast guest, she's also the author of a book called The Heart Sell, which is a guide for women entrepreneurs who want financial freedom. I've read the book and am obsessed with it. If you're looking for a soulful yet strategic way to build your business, head to dorarankin.com and get the Heart Sell book today. All right, friends, let's get real for a sec. Cleaning every part of your RV, including the nasty bits, is a big part of RV life. We use wastewater products for our camper from Unique Camping and Marine that are the best. They have a 2-in-1 toilet cleaner and black tank treatment called Flush It. That is freaking brilliant. Find these and many other useful RV products at uniquecampingmarine.com and use code RVQueens for 15% off your order. Hello, my friends and fellow RV queens. This is Kate White, your host, coming at you from one of my new favorite places on earth, Petoskey, Michigan, where it's a beautiful 70-something degrees outside while the rest of our poor country is like sweltering in the heat. Oh my gosh, everyone, seriously, Northern Michigan has stolen my heart. Today, I got the great honor of meeting and chatting with Aleja Briles, and she is actually the first Latina woman that I have had on this show, and one of the only Latina women that I've met on, like, during RV life, and she explains why during the podcast, which I thought was really funny and fun. I mean, we became fast friends in this conversation. Like, we were talking about birth stories. We get into the nitty-gritty on how to light the camper oven properly. We talk about her super cool business that she runs and that actually like funds their life on the road. So many cool stories. Toward the end of the episode, she gives a little sneak peek into what her and her husband's next nomadic adventure is. And it sounds like a movie. Like, they're going to be living the dream. It's so cool. I really enjoyed this episode. I think you will too. Let's get into it. Hola, Aleja. How are you today?
Hola, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Did I pronounce your name right? I hope I did.
Yes.
Okay, good.
You did. I was actually surprised. A lot of people get it wrong. So you were perfect.
Yes. I did take a lot of Spanish in my growing up years, so some of it stuck. Not all of it, but a lot of it did. So where are you guys today? Where are you coming from?
We are in Bend, Oregon right now. Trying to stay away from the smoke.
Yeah, I've heard it's so beautiful up there. Everyone says Oregon is like a must-see. Yeah. Is that where you guys are from?
So it's where my husband, I always say he's like half from here because he grew up half the time in Portland and half the time in Bend. But this will be our like forever spot eventually. Okay. So where I would love to start this conversation is back, the Aleja before RV life. I think you had a career and a house in the burbs and all of the American dream stuff. Tell me, paint a picture for us what your life looked like a few years ago. Yeah, I mean, you had it pretty spot on. So yeah, we had the house in the burbs. We lived in Dallas, Texas. And it was great. We loved it. We have wonderful friends that we still love there. My family is actually still there. And there were so many things that we loved. We had a house just in like a little suburb east of Dallas. And my husband was working a consulting job. And I was still teaching, but I was actually teaching English for a bigger online company. And we had just had our first kid. And eventually one day, I mean, I guess if we'll get into that in a sec, we were just kind of like, is this what we want forever? So yeah, that was the Aleja before. Lots of working. I was doing a little bit of social media, very different than what I do now. Like right now it's like hippie mom stuff on the road. And back then it was like very much like Dallas and like out for drinks and brunch. And I definitely don't do that anymore.
Right.
So yeah, quite a different life, but I definitely love this life more, I think.
To me, it's like the American dream is in the bag, right? You got the college education, you have the big house, you have the dual incomes, you have a kid, maybe you had another one on the way. Like what was it? What happened that made you want to just sell it all and get into RV life?
I mean, there are so many things. So we actually came to Oregon on, I'm trying to think, we came here twice, like kind of while COVID was happening. And we were here in March of 2021. And we were kind of sitting out on my in-laws' balcony. And this is in a town called Sun River. It's further south. And we were on their balcony and we were just like looking at all these trees and nature. And our son was just kind of wild and playing. And we kind of both felt that was more what we pictured our life like than what we had going in Dallas. And there was a lot about Dallas that we loved. Like we met our best friends there. And but there was a lot that we just didn't feel like was fulfilling us. There was really like no nature. Blake was working a pretty like stringent job that kept him like very busy, and like even when he wasn't busy he was kind of stressed because he was worried about like his status and like if he was going to move up. And one day we were just kind of like, okay, is this what we want forever? Because it could very much have been forever. It was an economic consulting job, and that's something that he could have stayed in working for a really long time. And so as we're sitting out in nature in Oregon, we were kind of like, how can we make this a reality? Do we just up and move to Oregon? It'd be great to be able to travel. And like we were young, we had kids pretty young at the time. We were 27 and 29. So we were young and we had a kid, and we were just like, that's a long time to live the same way, until we retire. That's 30 years. And do we really want that for life? And so we started looking into alternative lifestyles, and we came across, the nomadic world, and we watched everything from van life to schoolies to RVs. And we were like, okay, I think this is possible. It seems like people do this. So maybe we could try. And the timeline was incredibly short. Like this conversation happened in March of 2021. We had our house on the market by June 2021. We bought our RV in June 2021, and we sold our house in July and hit the road in September. So it was like a couple months that we discovered RVing and then left. So we knew nothing. And now it's been 2 years.
That is awesome. We had like a super quick story like that too, where it was just like, this seems like the right thing to do next. And we were like 2 or 3 months. I think it was like July we had the conversation, and then we left in September. So
that's crazy.
So I always am curious, like, did you know anything about RVs? Were you like camping people before, like outdoorsy, or was it just like, the internet school? What is it called? Google University.
Yeah. It was definitely a combo. So I had never stayed in an RV in my life. I had been in one RV. Our friends, the Schroeders, they have an RV. And I remember we met up with them once and we were like, oh, can we see your RV? And we kind of walked through it. And I kind of thought, oh, this is cool. but I literally had been in one RV before we decided to do this. And we were, or are, we were always outdoorsy. In college, we were super poor college students, and so that's all we did. Is on the weekends we'd take our little tent and go camping. And we were in Utah at the time, so we would go to Moab and Zion. So we did always kind of do, outdoorsy kind of wanderlusty stuff, but had never done RV, had also never like really built or done anything. And we renovated our RV. So that was another new thing too.
Oh
So
gosh, that's
yeah,
a lot.
we went into it knowing nothing.
First of all, how did you pick a motorhome? And also, how did you decide how to renovate it? To me, it's just like it's
Yeah.
so overwhelming, especially when you're new and know nothing. Tell me about that decision process.
Yeah, 1,000%. So we decided on a motorhome. So it was actually my husband's idea. And we had this thing where we kind of went back and forth because I really wanted a fifth wheel. And he wanted to do the motorhome because he was like, I think it will just be easier to be able to drive something. And we had a pretty big house. And so I knew that like reducing down, I was like, the smallest I think I can do is a fifth wheel. And he was just like, I just think it will be a lot harder to do the things we want to do in a fifth wheel. Like he was the one researching things. And we knew we wanted to kind of be off grid and kind of go to more like wild places as much as we could. And then he was worried about the size of the truck compared to the size of the fifth wheel that I wanted. He's like, okay, if you want this big of a fifth wheel, we need this big of a truck. And you can't really take that size of truck like super off-roading. So we need to have something where we can have like a Jeep. And so it was more logistics of what we wanted our life to look like versus our rig. So we ended up with this and we chose so we have a Thor Outlaw and we liked that it had the garage space because at first, so that's another thing. That's a whole another story. But at first we only had our one son. And so we were kind of thinking, okay, the garage space in the Outlaw, we can make that like our living room. And so we can have all this extra space here. Plus on the deck is where we can have our dogs because we have 3 dogs. I have a fostering issue where I will volunteer to foster and then I keep the dog.
Yeah.
So we had 3 dogs. And so this kind of worked out for us that we were like, okay, we have a balcony for like the dogs to kind of have like their kennel-ish kind of space, the garage space where we can kind of have this indoor outdoor living room. Like it really felt like it fit for what we needed. And yeah, the story for the other day is that the weekend we bought our RV, I came back and I was just not feeling good. And TMI, I thought I had a really bad hangover. I was like,
Oh my God.
am I hungover for like 3 days? Like, what is going on?
Oh my gosh.
Turns out I was pregnant. Oopsie.
Yeah, I was about to ask.
Didn't
Yeah,
know.
of course.
Yeah. So we literally bought the RV and the following weekend found out we were pregnant.
Oh my gosh. So you went through pregnancy and having a new baby while you lived in your RV?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh
Our
my
baby's
gosh.
entire life, including in the womb, is in an RV.
That is amazing. How did
Yeah.
you, I mean, like doctor visits and stuff, did you just kind of like have to plan that out in advance or how did that work for
I
you?
did. Yeah. So we had planned our route. When we found out I was pregnant, what we did is we kind of planned our route so that we knew we were going to end up here in Bend. And so I found a group of midwives here in Bend, and they referred me as well as my sister in like the different states we were in. So my sister had her daughter in Utah. And so her midwives there were willing to kind of see me like on the side. So I actually had an in-home midwife visit in the RV when I was pregnant.
What?
And she brought like the Doppler and like took
Oh my
my like
gosh.
vitals and everything in the RV. It's the craziest thing. So pretty wild. But yeah,
Awesome.
so I just kind of saw midwives along the way because midwives are a lot more flexible than doctors typically. So I just saw midwives along the way. And then I ended up here in Bend with my midwives that I chose. And yeah, the rest is history.
Wow, that is awesome. Did you, I mean, I don't know if you are willing to share this, and it's totally okay if you don't want to, but
Yeah.
I have 2 kids, and I was like an all natural birth mom, like had a doula and
Yeah.
midwives and all that stuff. So did you like have a hospital birth and then just like come back and bring the baby to the RV, or do you want to touch on your birth story a little bit?
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. So we do have a YouTube video on like the birth if anyone wants to
Ooh,
watch it.
I
But
totally do.
um
Yes.
yeah, it's up there. So yeah, we did the plan was to have an all natural birth. I did natural with my son. That was my I that's what I like. That's my personal choice. And so I plan to do an unmedicated birth with the baby as well, and with my daughter. And so we went to the Ben Family Birth Center. That's where my midwives were at. And that was the plan. Everything was going pretty good, but like I wasn't progressing. And my midwife, I just feel like I owe her my life and my daughter's life. She was unreal. She's amazing. Um, she kept saying like, I just have this feeling that I like shouldn't break your water, because like my water wasn't breaking, but I was like all the way dilated, like everything was like ready to go, and my water just like was not breaking. And she just kept saying like, I just have this really strong feeling I shouldn't break your water, but like you tell me what you want to do. And I was like, okay, like we can just like keep trying. And I kept trying to push, but like my amniotic sac was like pretty big, and so it just was not coming through. But she just kept saying, I don't think I want to break your water. I just have this feeling. I have this feeling. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, but what do we do? Because I can't push very much longer.
Yeah.
Like, I can only go in and out of the shower and like the tub and everything so much. And so she was like, tell me if you're okay with this, at least getting like a little bit of an epidural to give you like a break. And I was like, so my husband and I kind of talked about it, and we were like, okay, let's do it. But I didn't want to do any pain medication. I was like not wanting to do that at all, just because it goes to the baby. And I don't know, I just didn't want that. So I decided to okay the epidural. And we waited for a while. And then finally, like things kind of started, like because I was able to take a break, I think my body relaxed it a little bit. And my baby was born in the amniotic sac. She came out
What?
in the sac. It
Are
was
you
the
kidding
craziest
me?
thing
I have
ever.
never heard
No,
that before, and I've talked to a lot of moms about birth stories. That
I
is
know.
crazy.
It's so rare. I know. My midwife, she's been in the game for like, I think she said 35 years, and she's only had 2 sac babies.
I didn't even
Yeah.
know that was
So
possible. Like,
I didn't
what?
either. And I
That's
will say that
crazy.
it felt different than pushing out like a regular baby.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like,
Like,
was it easier? Like,
I
because you
mean, like,
don't have like
yes and
all the
no, but
bones.
exactly. Like, it didn't feel as like, this is like graphic, but it didn't feel as like bumpy, because it was just like
Yeah,
one thing.
yeah,
Like, it was just like a smooth,
yeah.
it was like an orb. But I also don't fully know because I was partially numbed. And also,
Ah,
the epidural only half worked. I could still feel like my full left side. So, and because I have scoliosis, so they kind of expected that to happen.
wow.
They were like, it's not going to go in straight because you have scoliosis. So, only, yeah, I wasn't numb on my left. So, when the sac popped, it popped like right as she came out. And when the sac popped, her umbilical cord was tied twice around her neck and across her face. And so, had my midwife broken my water and had she dropped, because the umbilical cord was so tight around her face and her neck, it would have essentially like hung her. And so, when my midwife kept saying, I just have this feeling I shouldn't
Oh
break your
my
water,
gosh.
that was it.
Oh, I have so many goosebumps right now.
Yeah,
Dude,
I know.
this is ugh, yeah. I mean, I could seriously talk to you about birth stories like all day because I have 2 like
I know.
crazy ones myself too. So the sac comes out with the baby in it, but it also like bursts at the same time, or it bursts like
Yeah.
after she came out.
So she came out, she was like out, and then all of a sudden it popped like a balloon. It
Okay.
was the craziest thing. I almost
That
think
is
it was
so
like
cool.
the pressure of being outside.
Yeah.
Like, cause it literally, it's like she came out and then it just went, and like the water and everything was everywhere. And
Wow.
she was just there, and she was purple, and she just had like, I just saw like, looked like she was
My
wearing like the
gosh.
thickest
Yeah.
choker. And then like her face was smushed, and she was so chubby that she had like a dent in her face,
Oh,
plus her
for
little
probably like
faint
a couple
heart.
days.
Yeah.
Oh,
But she was so cute.
my oldest, I like prayed. I was like really freaked out about having the cord wrapped around her neck when she was born. I mean, out of all the things that could go on, I was like so freaked out about it. And
Yeah.
she came out with it around her neck, but then ended up being fine. But when I saw her come out with it around her neck, I like panicked. Like I was just like, I
Yeah.
remember going, "Oh my God, someone help her." Like it was just, oh my gosh. It's just like such
Yeah.
a normal, like it happens to a lot of babies, but it's so scary as the mom that you're like,
Yeah.
she can't breathe. Yeah, freaky stuff.
I know. It can be so scary.
Thank you for sharing that story. I didn't know we would go
Yeah.
there today, but
Here we
I
are.
love those stories that's like this was how it was meant to be, and someone was like intuitive enough to know this is how things had to go, and that is the craziest thing that I've ever heard. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, about travel life and RV stuff. Um, you traveled while pregnant for the first, what, 9 or 10 months? And then,
Yeah.
so did you guys, was your style like kind of quick and like, let's see as much as we can? Or talk to me about like how you have traveled over the past couple years here.
Yeah, that's such a good question. No one's ever asked me that. Yeah, so while I was pregnant, our travel was pretty quick. Like, I would say we stayed at the longest in one spot for like 2-ish weeks, because we were trying to see as much as we could between Texas and Oregon. And so we were kind of like going everywhere. But it's funny, as soon as we had the baby, it completely changed. Like, we'll do a month in one spot.
Yeah.
And even then, it's like we'll do a month in one spot, but the spots are in the same state. And so the next spot is only like 3 hours away, and we'll do another month in that spot or something.
Yeah.
So it's really changed. But yeah, while I was pregnant, we moved around a ton, which I don't recommend to pregnant women. Yeah, so I had lots of puke out the window moments. Bless Blake's heart.
Oh my gosh.
And for the most part, like one time I threw up out of like the passenger window so I could open it all the way and like puke. But one time I was sitting in the back, like where the bench seats are for the kids. And I mean, you have a rig, you know, like the screw open windows that kind of just like pop out like that.
Yep.
So it was one of those. And Blake couldn't hear me.
Oh,
He was in the front, and
no.
I was like, pull over, pull over, pull over. And he couldn't hear me. He was like, what? So I screw open the window and I just tried to shove as much as my face.
Oh my
It was so bad. So then he pulls over, and I like go to the bathroom to like clean myself off. And I just hear him out there like wiping the side of the RV off because my throw up just went along the whole side of the RV. It was so bad.
Can you imagine if you were someone driving by you right then? Oh boy. You'd be like,
Yeah.
what is
What is going on? I know.
Oh,
So
we
bad.
are keeping it real with this conversation. I love it.
I mean, birth, puke. I mean, we have it all.
Yeah. So how old is your baby now?
She is 1.5.
Pretty much that first year-ish was like pregnancy, having a baby, and then slowed down a lot. And since then, you've just kind of like done months at a time. That makes sense. Okay, so I would love to talk with you about your heritage, also being a Latina. You're the first Latina I've had on this show, and I haven't met like many full-time Latinas. So will you talk to me about your heritage and about your family background?
Yeah. One thing I will say, I don't feel like, I mean, I'm not surprised I'm the only Latina because it's not common. My family thinks I'm insane.
I was going to ask that.
They're like, Aleja's living in a car. And I'm like, I'm 100% not living in a car. But they all think I am. So, yeah, it's just so not funny. Hispanics, we don't do this. But here I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm Colombian. And I'm Afro-Colombian. So my dad is indigenous and Black. So he's like part of the indigenous community in Colombia. And then we have like slave ancestry. So we're like Afro-Colombian. It's kind of like African American, but in Colombia, and he's indigenous and African. And my mom is just like your typical like Euro Latina. She's fair and has like jet black hair, like what you imagine a Latina to look like.
Okay.
And so I'm from Colombia. I'm from like central Colombia. My mom's from the coast, and we moved to the U.S. when I was 4. And so, I mean, I've lived in the U.S. I was 4, I was so little. So I love my heritage and I love my background. It's a huge part of me. And I really try to like teach my kids about it. It's hard because you don't meet that many Colombians. You meet a lot of, Mexicans, and the culture is very different. Like our culture is pretty different from Mexicans, but I like for them to, have a little diversity in their lives still. And, but my kids, they speak English and I try to speak Spanish to them. And every once in a while now, my 3-year-old, he'll be like, no, not in Spanish. Like I'll say something to him in Spanish and he goes, not in Spanish.
Oh
and
my
I'm like,
gosh.
oh, dang it. So we're working on it. But yeah.
He's like, my brain doesn't want to work that way right now, Mom.
Yeah.
Just
He's like, we're not doing
keep
that.
it easy for me. So what is the difference
Exactly.
between Colombian cultures and Mexican cultures?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that much about Mexicans. A lot of my friends growing up, like I have a lot of Mexican friends, and even like just when it comes down to like food or like music, like Mexican food is very spicy. Colombian food is not. Colombia is more, I don't know how many people know much about like Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, but that's more where like Colombia leans. We're more like a Caribbean, at least the coast. And my mom is the one that raised me. And in the coast of Colombia, the culture is a lot more Caribbean. And so it's very like loud and party, and everything is an occasion to like dance and celebrate. And the food, like you eat plantains and coconut rice and stuff like that. So that's more like the culture. We don't have like tacos and things like that. So there's just a lot. I feel like there's a lot that like brings people together too. Like I know Mexican people love music and dancing, and so that's really nice to like still be able to like have and hold on to. And obviously the language is the same. So I try to like make sure, my kids are exposed to like lots of things, and I'm hoping eventually they'll like Spanish. But I like at least make Colombian food at home. Like I try to make like empanadas and stuff here. And it's harder in an RV because like an RV stove, it's like you have the propane cranking all the way as like you're making this meal that takes like 2 hours in a house. So it takes like 4 hours in an RV.
Right. It's not as, what's the word? Not stable, but it's not as like predictable. I don't know. Like trying to bake stuff in
Yes,
an oven. I'm
exactly.
like, it's kind of like 400-ish degrees right now. And
Yeah.
so if the recipe says it's going to take 30 minutes, like maybe it's going to take longer. Maybe it's going to not take as long. Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Or like where the rack is. If the rack is like
Right.
really
Oh my
close
gosh.
to like the fire bar, you're like, oh, okay, the cookies are completely burned. Great.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, that fire bar. I was baking bread earlier today, actually, and I was like in, another room of the RV, and I was like, I could smell it. I was like, oh my gosh, it's too close. Like, it's just like burns everything to a crisp. But here's a small tip in case you haven't heard. I'm sure you like probably know how to cook better than me in an RV. But I did find that if you put foil, like, between where the cookie sheet goes and like where that metal, like right above the fire strip, like you said, it kind of makes the heat more like, doesn't burn everything. Like it kind of just like circulates the heat around it better. Yeah.
It just kind of adds like a little layer. You know what? I did not know that. I'm going to go put tinfoil there right now.
So it works for something like bread, but if you're trying to make, pizza that you kind of want crispy, then
Oh, yeah.
Then you got to do like halftime with the foil, halftime without the
Yeah.
foil. It's super fun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, you know what? Since we're talking tips, one that maybe some other fellow moms would like. So, if you're making cookies, and my mother-in-law told me to do this, and she's never lived in an RV, but she said that like her grandma had this really old stove that had like fire at the bottom, and she's like, "Oh, let's try this," because we kept burning these cookies. So we took like a cake pan, or like a brownie sheet, and we flipped it over and put the cookies on like the back of
Oh,
the cake pan
brilliant.
and cooked it like that. And she's like, it kind of makes like a convection oven
Yeah.
because it brings it up high and it keeps like hot air there. The cookies were perfect and they were like fluffy.
Oh my gosh. Brilliant. Yeah.
So there you go.
Nice. I have never heard that one, but I'm gonna try it. I lit our stove the wrong way for like the first 6 months because we had bought this old used fifth wheel and we had never used an RV before. And so the person that we bought it from said you have to light the oven with like the lighter stick. You have to like hold the lighter stick down there and then like do the little lighter button thing.
Yeah.
And so literally for 6 months, I was like down there, like bending over, like with a fire stick in there and doing this thing. And like, if you're baking something and then you turn the oven off and then you're like, oh shoot, I need to bake anymore. You can't do that because you can't like reach your hand into the hot oven. Anyways, whatever.
Yeah.
It was like, it was like a miracle, but also really embarrassing moment when we had a friend like show us how to use our oven properly for the first time, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
I literally light my oven. I've lived in this for 2 years. Is there something I can do? I'm literally about to die.
Ah!
What do you do?
Okay, so I mean, I'm assuming we probably have this similar oven. On the one where you like set the temperature to cook,
Yeah.
Before the numbers start, there's a little fire symbol. So you push in to and hold in like the fire symbol, and then you like click the lighter button. Does that make sense?
Like the thing that lights the stove burners?
Yes. And that it's like
it starts the oven?
Yeah. Yay! I'm not the only one. Oh my gosh.
I've been doing this for 2 years. Shut up.
Yes. Seriously.
Oh my god.
And if you look down there,
I literally get in there every time and I'm like holding the knob and lighting the thing.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
No way.
I'm serious. I'm so glad I told you that.
Yes, me too. There's no way. That is so funny. Okay, well, I am going to go light my oven right after
there
this.
we go. And make some cookies on an upside down pan.
Yeah. Exactly.
I love it. Well, I'm glad that I was able to share with you how to use an oven properly. And I'm like an RV newbie, so I tell everyone that I can about that trick. So
oh my gosh. That's amazing. Thank you.
Okay, so totally change of topics here. You run a business with your sister called Spanish Sisters.
Yeah.
Would love to chat about that. What was your original inspiration to start that business?
Yeah. So I mentioned briefly before that my sister and I, or that when we were in Texas, I taught English for a bigger company. And my sister and I actually both worked for that company. And we were teaching English to Spanish speakers. And we had taught in different universities, like we were doing academic English for like university students. And it was like a friend of a friend reached out and they said, hey, you teach my friend English online. And I've been trying to better my Spanish because I'm going to move down to, I think they lived in Colombia. But they were like, I'm going to move down to Colombia like permanently. And I want my Spanish to be really good when I'm there. Do you guys teach Spanish? And they were inquiring of like the company that we worked for. And so we asked our boss and they were like, oh, we don't really have the bandwidth for that right now. We kind of just teach like these bigger classes. And so my sister and I were like, well, no one said we can't. So we were like, hey, we'll teach you. And we were like, we'll teach you for like $20. Like, little did we know we should have been charging like way more. But we just started teaching this guy, and he was a very well-connected person. And he was on vacation with his girlfriend and her friends. And one day to the next, so he had class one day while he was on vacation. And all of his friends were kind of like listening in, and they were like, hey, we want to learn Spanish. And it was seriously one day to the next. Every single one of these people had signed up to take Spanish with my sister and I.
Oh, wow.
And so we were like, okay, well, we have like a business now. Like, all of a sudden we have like 15 students like that we didn't have before taking private Spanish lessons. So kind of one day to the next, it all happened, and they told their friends, and then eventually people found out, and we made an Instagram page, and then we needed to hire teachers. So we hired teachers, and now we have 3 teachers, and we do this full time now. So it's been really amazing. We teach Spanish, if that wasn't obvious, I guess. I don't even know if I explicitly said that, but we teach Spanish.
That is awesome. I love it when businesses start so organically like that, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
it's meant to be. So how has it gone working from the road now, and with like 2 kids? Like, even just schedule wise, how do you and your husband make that work?
Yeah. And I mean, you kind of saw it in action as I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm trying to drive in right now. It can be a little bit crazy. And the first, I would say like 8 months, actually right before I went on like my maternity leave that I gave myself, it was crazy. Like, I won't lie. I was trying to like figure it out. We have this online scheduling system called 10 to 8 where like students can go in and like schedule whatever time works best for them for that week to have their class. And it works really well, but my husband and I, we're not the greatest planners when it comes to like traveling, what day we're going to leave and where we're going to go. And so it was really hard because my husband and I like wouldn't know that we were leaving a spot until like the day before we were leaving. And then I would check the calendar, and I had a class in the middle of the day on the day we were supposed to be driving. So for the first little bit, we tried the whole like pull over and set out Starlink and teach a class really quick, and then like get back in the car and keep driving. And it was a disaster. And twice I taught a class in the back of the RV, jostling around.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a disaster. So I was like, this is probably not very professional, and I need to not do this anymore.
Oh man.
So I changed it. So on the scheduling platform, I have like very specific times that I teach, and I just stick to those. So like I teach on Tuesday and Thursday for like 5 hours, and like that's when I have just all my students. And it's worked out really well. And it's nice now hiring the teachers, because if there are students that Tuesday and Thursday doesn't work for them, then they can schedule with some of our teachers. And we have teachers, like 2 of my teachers can do the mornings and 1 of my teachers can do the evening. So we can cover a wide base of like students, which is nice. So now we have a little more flexibility, and now I've learned to try to not schedule things on moving day. But when there's a fire like freaking this week, I was like, I need to get back.
I know. Sometimes it's just, you can't predict what's going to happen. Or, I mean, flat tire, or like weather, or it could be 100 things. Yeah. It's just, you gotta roll with the punches on several days. Does your husband work as well from the road?
No. So my husband, well, I shouldn't come out and just say like no, because he's been like working on doing our like social media full time, and he has had a lot of success as of late. Like, our family pages have really taken off literally in the last month. And it's funny because now that people find us, they're like, oh, you guys are like privileged influencers. And we're like, we had 5 followers until yesterday.
Right.
Like, no, we're not. We're definitely not.
Yeah.
So, but now he's been just like working really hard over the last like probably 1.5 years on, because like the first few months it was just we lived entirely on what we made off of our house and my income. And hopefully now, that we have a following. I mean, like I said, we just got this following this month. So maybe we'll start doing some social media collaborations and make some more income there. But yeah, he's been working on that, which takes a lot of time, as you probably know, like editing and,
Right. It's more time than you would think. I remember, before we started this lifestyle, I was the breadwinner, to be honest, and I had the office job and the corporate job and all that stuff. And when people would talk about influencers, it's like people I don't really call people influencers. I'm like, you're content creators. Like that's literally your job, is like creating content all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I never really took it seriously until we started RV life, and I like kind of started dabbling in it. And then I met a lot of people that do content creation that are RVers and all that stuff. And I'm like, this is real. Like it's work, and you have to be a smart professional. Like it's not just teeny boppers in their room. Yeah, I don't know, like whatever I used to think it was. Like it's not some like flaky, it's like real.
Yeah, like, oh, here's a picture of me and like easy peasy. Like it's not like that anymore.
Right. So yeah, for sure. And a lot of the people that not a lot, I would say maybe like half the people I've had on the podcast, like are serious content creators and brand deals. And it's a lot of time management, especially when you have kids, and like you have to sell yourself to the brand. Like you have to pitch yourself properly. It's like a whole thing.
And you have to like make content that like, that's the one thing, like you have to make content that is able to go and relate to a lot of people, but also be kind of like in your niche, and like make content that a brand will be like, oh yeah, like that'll work out good for me to advertise whatever, you know what I mean? And then when you do make an advertisement, you have to try to make it so that it's like genuine and isn't like, buy Suave today. Like,
there's a lot of creativity that has to go on there. And I like now that I kind of have like an insider perspective on what it takes. And mind you, I've worked with one brand. Like I have like, I don't even know, 1,000 followers. No. I'm not saying I've like done this a lot, but it like whenever you get into it, you like start appreciating everyone else's content so much more, because you're like, oh nice, I see what you did there.
It's so true. You see like montages and stuff, you're like, I know that took you hours.
Oh my gosh, I know, seriously. Or like where did they get that transition? What app did they use for that transition? Oh man, total nerds.
True.
Okay, so you were a singer at one point in your life. And one of your most embarrassing moments revolves around you singing.
Oh my gosh, where did you even get this from?
Research, girl. What happened?
It's so true. Okay, so literally, this is so embarrassing. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I used to dabble in singing. I would say I liked the arts. So like I danced in high school and in college. And then like I sang, like, I mean, I sang well enough, I will say. Like I was an honor choir in high school and stuff. And so I served a mission. I did like a mission for a church, and they were having like a musical number. I don't even know if this is the story. I probably have multiple embarrassing stories around singing. Anyway, so I sang and I completely forgot the words.
Oh no.
Completely, like 100%. And I like tried to get it back, and I ended up just literally finishing the song. Like I just stopped singing and I sat down. And then after, like the little president of like what we were performing for came up, and like so passive aggressive and also so embarrassing, was like, thank you to everyone who prepared and put effort into their musical numbers, and like looked at me, and I was like, oh my gosh, like it was so embarrassing. So yeah, I stopped singing.
Oh man, that is
not really after that, but like I didn't sing after that.
Yeah, that is the stuff of nightmares for me. I didn't have that experience singing, but back in the day, I don't even remember. It was high school or college or something. And I was a theater person for like a hot minute, and I forgot the
Yeah.
words. And like could not, like, just nothing. My brain, I was just blank, and it was just like, like, what
Yeah.
do you do? It is the
Yeah.
worst feeling.
And once your brain realizes you've forgotten, you don't even know your name at that point. You're just like, I
It is
forgot
the
everything.
worst. It is the worst.
Hmm.
Which makes me
Yeah.
appreciate, like, people that sing and dance professionally. I don't get it. I've never been a dancer. I don't understand how you can remember all these words and sing it perfectly and dance at this, like, remember all the dancing stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
Beyonce, you are superhuman. How are you doing that?
I like the singing and dancing. I can't even imagine doing that at the same time. Like, I always, my friends wanted me to join like show choir because I was on the dance team and like I would do choir. And I was like, I don't think I could do the two at the same time. Like, there's no way.
And it's the same with people that can play the piano really well. I'm like, how are you reading music for both all 10 fingers, like both hands? I don't, what? How is your brain doing
Yeah,
that?
I know. It's crazy. I don't know how people do it.
Oh man, that's good stuff. Well, thank you for sharing that embarrassing
Yeah,
moment with you, or with us.
no problem.
Uh,
I'm sure I have many more.
so when you think back to the Aleja before RV life a few years ago, and then you yourself now, what has changed?
Oh, that's such a good question. Probably like the first thing that pops into my mind are like, I guess like the materialistic things. I never thought of myself as like materialistic necessarily. But Blake had a good job and I was making income that, I mean, I hate to say it, but that I didn't really have to like contribute to like the household. And I know that sounds super privileged, but like the money that I made from like teaching and like I did a little like modeling and stuff, it was just like my money. And
Hmm.
so I'd get my nails done every week and I was getting like curly haircuts are not cheap. So I would get like a $300 haircut whenever I wanted. And, now I'm like, the ghetto. Like, what is this? Like, and I just don't even care. I'm like, oh, like whatever. Like, if we have extra money, it usually goes to something on the rig or to the kids or
Hmm.
whatever. And it just doesn't really feel like I care about those things. And I see my friends, and I'm obviously super happy for like my friends that I see online that are buying houses and like decorating them or like putting pools in their backyards or whatever. And that's amazing for them. And I'm sure they are super happy and they've worked towards that. And I never want to take that away. But I don't feel like it has as much as an appeal to me as it did when I lived in a house. Like,
Hmm.
and it's funny because I was talking to Blake about this the other day. My friend got a house and she was like planning out a pool and she was kind of asking for opinions. And I was like, isn't it crazy that if we still lived in our house right now, I would probably be like stressed and worried about redecorating because we got the house this many years ago and like we probably needed to update the furniture and redo the backyard or whatever. And that's what would be consuming me, and it just feels now almost so like devoid of like
Hmm.
meaning because I'm spending time with my kids and I'm enjoying it, and I'm spending time with like my husband all the time, and we're exploring all these beautiful places where tomorrow we can go down to a waterfall, and that's what I'm spending my time thinking about, not
Hmm.
what rug would go better with my couch.
Right.
So I just feel like there's such a difference with the things that matter to me.
Oh man, I feel that so much. Yeah. Okay, so speaking of, decorating and things, you guys recently posted your beautiful motorhome for sale.
Thank
So
you.
I'm super curious, what is next, in this adventure?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is actually fun because you'll be the first person to like publicly know, I guess. So I guess our followers will find out on the podcast maybe. That will be
Yeah.
fun. They'll get a little sneak peek. So we're doing something kind of crazy. So we're still going to be nomadic. And the plan is that we're going to, I thought I just heard my son. Sorry. So the plan is that we are going to buy and build out a 170 extended Sprinter van. And we're going to make it super modular, and we're not going to van life in the US. We're going to do a semi-nomadic European adventure. So the plan is to ship the van over to Europe and spend a good chunk of time in the van, but also a good chunk of time in like Airbnbs throughout Europe, and travel through Europe for like the next year and a half. And then after that, we'll see where the wind blows. But that's the plan right now.
That is the dream. Oh man, so good. Are you doing the work yourself on the van, or like how do you know how to do all that?
Yeah, that's the plan. So I think that will be kind of part of the adventure, like the adventure that is next, is we want to try to build something from like the ground up, because we've really enjoyed the renovations that we've done in the RV. And so we're selling this. And then once this is sold, we're going to be going back to Texas, and we're going to live with my parents because my dad's a contractor. And so we're hoping that with my dad and us, like, we're going to be able to build out the van from the ground up. The plan is to really make it super modular. Like everything is going to convert into something else. And we want to have as much space still to be conscious of like the kids. And we're going to do a pop-up roof so that the kids still have like their own area up there. Our bed is going to be like an elevator bed. So like when it raises up, the kids have like open floor space. So the plan is to have like a hyper modular van, and we're going to try to build it ourselves. So we're giving ourselves like 6 months, and we're hoping to leave to Europe by like May, June of next year.
I love it so much. That sounds awesome. Well, we are excited to stay posted on, I'm sure you guys will like document, the process there. That's so cool. Okay, I have one more question, and then I would love for you to share where everyone can connect with you online.
Yeah.
The slogan for this show is a podcast about unexpected riches. And I would love for you to share what's the unexpected richness that you have found from RV life.
Oh, that's so great. I think probably the unexpected richness is time, realizing the value of our time. And, it's an economic term, at the risk of sounding like a total nerd, but there is a such thing as the time value of money, or like the value that your time holds. And there's not a rewind button. Like my kids will never be 3 and 1 again. My husband will probably never have, the chance to be with his kids all the time, or maybe I wouldn't. Who knows what life will be like in the future, but kids eventually go to school, or you have to focus on homeschooling them. My kids are so young right now that it's not really that big of a focus, but in the future it will be, and that's what will consume our time. And so just being able to literally spend every waking minute with our kids, and for us to be their influence rather than rando Jan at daycare, or some little kid who knows what he's teaching my kids. We get to be who the kids look to, and we get to teach them what's important and what values we have as a family. And I just think that even though they may not remember what we're doing, that it will affect them. I really do think that their souls will remember it. And at the risk of sounding like a total hippie, I really feel like our bodies hold memories. And I feel like our kids will appreciate this, even though they may not be able to recall, like, yeah, remember when we went on that bike ride in the Tetons? Maybe not, but they'll be able to like feel that time and that effort that we put into being with them.
Oh yeah, totally. And not to mention like all the goodness of just literally running around in the grass on the earth in all these places,
Yes,
just soaking up that good nature time too.
exactly. Yeah, just
I love
having an appreciation for that. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
so true.
good stuff. Oh man, thank you so much for being on today. I loved chatting with you and getting to know you. And will you tell everyone where they can get more of you on the internet?
Yes, of course. So you can find our family page at the Briles, so Briles. That's across all socials, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. And then my personal page is just Aleja Briles. And our Spanish teaching page, if you ever want Spanish tips, we try to post some on our Spanish Sisters page, and it's sisters with 2 S's at the end.
Oh, thank you so much for being on today and for sharing all of your goodness with us on the podcast, Aleja.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. I will see you on the road.
Since I was last on the podcast, lots of things have changed, and yet lots of things have also stayed the same. So, in this last year or so, maybe a little less, we were teasing out what was next for our family, and that we didn't quite want to stop traveling yet. We have kind of stopped traveling, but we're full-fledged building out a van and planning on shipping it to Europe come the end of the fall, maybe the early winter. Things are definitely taking us longer to build than we thought. We thought we were experts. We thought we were going to be able to build the van super quickly and then get out to Europe in the summer. Obviously, that didn't happen because we are still very much halfway through our build. But things are going well. If you guys want to check out more on our page at the Briles, we share a ton more on there. My personal page is Aleja Briles, and I just kind of share little tidbits here and there. But this past year has brought us a lot of adventure, a lot of unexpected things, and also a ton of knowledge. We really did not know what an undertaking it was to build out an entire van, but it's been really rewarding so far. And we've just been really having a ton of fun building a community on our YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, as well as meeting up with people in person. We've been to some van meetups, some bus meetups, some RVing meetups, and we've just made tons of friends. So we're really excited to take this circus abroad.
All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode and for being my favorite part of RV life. If you could please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on, that would be awesome. And listen, if you want to have conversations like I had on this episode with your fellow RV women, head to rvqueenspodcast.com/community and choose your RV Queen Circle today. All right, guys, I'll see you next week, or hopefully I will see you on the road. That is amazing.